Say what's on your mind. Speak loud from within. Make us sing along with the power of the pen. Say what's on your mind. Speak loud from within. Make us sing
How are you?
along.
How are you, man?
I'm doing good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you great.
Everybody, let's give it up for my guest, man, on tonight, Damien Sneed. Yes, sir. What's good, bro?
What's up, man? I'm doing well, doing well.
I have to say thank you so much, man, for accepting the invitation and coming on. I've been waiting for this moment. You know, I've been waiting for this moment. I really want to get you on here on the power of the pen. I have so many questions to ask you. Before I get into those questions, I really would love for you to talk a little bit about yourself and who you are for the people in the back that don't know who Damien Sneed is. Let the people know, man, and then we're gonna dive into some questions, and I'm gonna help expound so that people can really know the depth of who Damien Sneed is. So let's go.
Well, I come from Augusta, Georgia. I was adopted by two wonderful parents. A lot of people don't know I was mute when they adopted me, so they were a little worried about me. And I got labeled as being autistic. I'm on the spectrum. I was labeled with ADHD. I also was put into special education, and they wanted to prescribe Ritalin and other things. And my parents were a little worried, and my father in particular, because a lot of times in America, during the time when I was born, if you are an African-American man and you're in special education, they pretty much have your whole track like set out.
It's all set up.
I came to my parents and I, started like singing a little bit, but when I did start talking, I had a horrible stuttering problem, really, really bad. And my grandmother actually prayed over me, and the stuttering left, and I used to get picked on a lot because I didn't really have a Southern accent. And they used to say I talk really proper, but people would never know why or the reason why. So the fact that I can speak in a complete sentence is really something. And I went to
Damien, you're blowing my mind right now. Oh my God, because I know what we get ready to talk about, and for you to start off with that, wow, keep going, keep going.
So I started. I was watching actually Praise the Lord. That was Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, PTL.
PTL.
I asked my mother if I could take piano lessons. I started taking piano lessons, and then I started doing more music and stuff in school, jazz band, orchestra, conducting the choir, different things like that. And then when I got to college, it's very interesting. The month that my grandmother died, and she got sick, and she was in ICU, I started stuttering again. I didn't know anything about this story. Actually, as a student at Howard, they actually suggested that I take speech pathology courses, and they actually said, why don't you talk to your family and find out where this comes from? I said, well, I was adopted. They said, well, see what you can find out. And I talked to my parents. They said, oh, yeah. Now, this is right after my grandmother died, like maybe 2 weeks. They said, oh, we forgot to tell you, you had a horrible stuttering issue, and we were actually very concerned and all this stuff. So, and I said, what does she do? I'm like, making sure it's not witchcraft. And they said she actually just prayed, but I understand now the power of prayer. Generational curses. I also know biblically, when you look at in the Bible, with Moses, and not being able to speak.
That's right.
And I realized then that there was something connected to my gifts, my livelihood, my calling, my assignment with my ability to speak, or the power of the pen with words.
Oh my God.
It's interesting though, because it came during the time at Howard University when I was very stressed. And now I actually get it. I guess my brain goes a lot quicker than normal speech, so I constantly have to slow myself down and try to rehearse the words. It ended up helping, like doing opera and classical music, understanding vowels and how to coach singers. But for me, sometimes I will stutter if I just allow myself to go. So I actually have to work very hard, even though it doesn't appear that way to people, but work at trying to actually speak in a way that's clear, that's, making sure everything is enunciated and pronounced and all my consonants and vowels. People would never know. And I got to New York, my first college teaching position, after I graduated from Howard and went to Peabody Conservatory and NYU and other places. And Stanley Brown gave me a call about someone from Pilgrim The father, I won't say who the person was, but their parents were in Pilgrim. They grew up in Pilgrim in Brooklyn, and they brought their son to me, and he was about 18, and he was mute. He didn't talk, maybe to his mother sometimes, maybe to his family. And I said, I know exactly what to do. And he started expressing himself and excelling in music. And now, if you know the person, a lot of people on your live know the person because the person is a phenomenal singer. They express themselves like through fashion, everything. But it's interesting though, what music can do. And I know what music has done for my life, in my life. And of course I've seen,
Jeez.
so I know the power of music. I know the power of music therapy. I can tell you when my mother that adopted me, when she was on a feeding tube the last few years of her life on hospice, on and off hospice, I remember it scared me. I mean, one time the nurse told us, she said, why are you holding your mother up? Because I was, living in New York City, going down to Georgia. She said, it's your fault. You're the one that's keeping her here. And I'm like, why are you talking like that? And my mom is here. She's like, she's just about dead. She can't hear anything. And we've given you and your aunt the book to describe, how the skin gets different and their eyes get different. And she's not eating and she's on a feeding tube. And, she's not using the restroom like she should be. And I said, well, I do know one thing. I said, my mother knows God. So I actually started singing a song that I recorded on my album, Broken the Minister, calling by his name. And it scared me because I didn't really know if my mom was going to respond the way she did. But as soon as I started singing, everybody ought to call him, my mother jumped up out of the hospital bed like this. She had been lifeless for weeks, not talking, looked me dead in my eyes, sang the song with me. I did 2 choruses of it. And then as soon as I finished, she just went lifeless again. It scared me. It scared my aunt. The nurse said, you know what? I'm sorry. God is doing something. But I also just know the power of music, the power of the pen, the power of words that go beyond medical science. It goes beyond any condition. It goes beyond what we've experienced, the pain, the difficulty. But something about a song that can be a song in the night. It can be a song of victory. It can be a love song. It can be any type of song. It doesn't necessarily even have to be gospel. But music does something in the synaptic gaps. It does something in the heart, in the spirit, in the soul that is just undeniable.
Damien, you, first of all, I didn't realize how loaded my question was. When I asked you to tell us a little bit about yourself, you just introduced me to a whole new perception of Damien Sneed. So my introduction to you came through I'll say our circle of music friends, right? Yep. Church friends, people that have studied music as well. We're all a part of the same spectrum, right? But you never really know somebody's background until you sit down and really talk with them. Their motivation for why they do what they do, their drive, their purpose for why they do what they do. I have such a newfound appreciation for who you are and what you contribute to music and to just everything you do. Damien, you started studying music at a young age, and I would love to know, at what point did you decide to go from just studying music, from just playing the piano, to becoming a conductor? Like, what made you want to go in that route with it?
I remember having dreams about a Hammond organ and like maybe a motif or a Nord. I couldn't describe it then, didn't have the words for it, but I just always saw this instrument that wasn't a piano, that wasn't a pipe organ, it wasn't a Lowry. I'm dating myself by saying a Lowry, Lowrey, that we had at my Baptist church.
Oh, wow.
I always wanted to do, I actually always wanted to sing. I used to sing more. Piano was secondary. Singing was my first thing. And the first instrument was guitar.
Wow.
Then I put the guitar down, I just did piano. I stopped singing a little bit in maybe like towards the end of high school, I just sort of stopped singing. Came to Howard University. But I had a teacher that I met in high school. Of course, a lot of people know that the opera singer, Jacob, my little nephew, that's Aaron Clark Sheard's grandson. My godmother was the late Jessie Norman. She sang at my parents' wedding when she was, I think, after her freshman year at Howard University. So my father and mother would force me to watch her. I'd have to wake up if it was nighttime. If I was outside playing, they'd call me home. If I was doing homework, they said, you have to stop. And I'm like, why? I'm doing homework. No, you have to watch Jesse Norman. My father would always say, I'm going to be dead and gone, but I want you to watch how she carries herself. Watch, Live from Lincoln Center Presents, watch how she sings, how she speaks, and so I would watch conductors conducting an orchestra. There used to be a show with Sherry and Lamb Chops. I don't know if people remember that.
Lamb Chops, yeah.
Lamb Chops.
Yes.
Sometimes I would be Madam and Lamb Chops, and then sometimes she would conduct an orchestra.
Right.
And so it was that was amazing to me. So anyways, my last year in high school, I met this man, David Bezzona. He's Italian, 9 months. Only 9 months. A baby's gestation period is 9 months. And in 9 months, that man changed my life. I applied for the Grammy in the Schools program. I got in for piano and for voice. I decided to do voice because I've been doing so much piano. And he told me, he said, I went to school with Kathleen Battle and at that time, James Devine from Metropolitan Opera. I think you should be a conductor. So he made me the student conductor for the musical. We did Into the Woods and The Mikado and other things. And I actually conducted and played,
wow.
And something called Thurber's Carnival. Sorry, it was like a theater show where I just started improvising, which is what led me into film scoring later. But I went to Howard and majored.
Y'all hear this? Y'all hear this? Keep going.
I went to Howard and majored in classical piano, solo classical piano. And after practicing and practicing and practicing alone in the practice room, I said, this isn't it. I can't do this and just always be alone in the practice room alone. So I wanted to start working more with singers, working more with chamber musicians. And then I realized if I really want to become a conductor, I need to go to school and get all the tools that I need because, I didn't really have a lot of that background like other people. We did Suzuki strings, we did this. It was all around me, but I was at church. I was doing a lot of schoolwork, and I also was doing a lot of piano, practicing like 8 to 9 hours a day in middle school and high school. That's how I won some of the competitions in high school for jazz pianists and for MTNA, like Georgia and stuff like that, concerti and stuff like that, or concerto, that's the plural concerti. Anyway, I went to the Conservatory. I double majored in computer electronic music and classical piano. The program folded my second semester.
Wait, Damien, hold on. People in the comments, those of you that have been on since we first started, do you hear what this man is saying? Do you hear what oh my God. Okay, keep going, I'm sorry.
So I said, God, you told me to come here to Peabody Conservatory. Why am I here and the program is closing? And just to encourage people, if you really, really trust God and look around you, the people he's put around you, the signs, people talk about, technology and how we can have things downloaded, but you can look at nature, you can look at anything around and God can speak through it. So I was walking down the hallway depressed, because creatives, sometimes we get, depressed. I'm like, I'm out here double majoring in computer electronic music and classical piano, and now the whole program is folding. Can't even continue. There was a sign, like an old Army sign that said, "We want you." It was in white.
Yeah.
I called the number. Professor Robert Rowe said, "Can you come here tomorrow?" I took Amtrak from Baltimore up to New York, met with him for about 7 minutes. He said, "Stop." He walked out of the room, came back 6 to 8 minutes later. He handed me a piece of paper. He said, "I've just registered you for class. You start in May." And I started doing film scoring. And so then when I was doing film scoring, one of my professors, Ron Sadoff, sat in class, and he was talking about Quincy Jones' first film score, The Pawnbroker, and we were talking about The Color Purple, different films by different people, Alfred Hitchcock. And so we got to The Color Purple, and he just stopped the video, and he started playing the entire Color Purple score. And I know that. I know that's my movie.
I know, Michelle.
He started playing everything, and then he played God Is Trying to Tell You Something. I'm like, wait a minute, how's a professor in his 50s or 60s that's not even African-American playing all this music? And he did it all by ear. So I said, what did you do? He said, well, I listened to the orchestra like it's just regular music. And I had a piano teacher who would, so we were working on piano concertos. Those are like, that's where the piano solos with the orchestra. At NYU, now watch this. Instead of me bringing 2 scores that had like my part and then a piano accompaniment part, my teacher, she said, bring the full score. That means like 40 to 50 lines of violin 1, violin 2, flute, oboe, clarinet. And the teacher actually looked at a score of 55 instruments at once and played in real time. And I was blown away. I said, wait, how did you do that? You're reading open score? So in school, you have to read like maybe 2 lines, treble bass, maybe 4, maybe 6 or 8. But this teacher was reading 55 pages. And I said, can you do it in a different key? So I modulated, because I had that skill from, church. And the teacher was able to do that. And I said, well, can you read this? It's in G major. And the teacher said, sure, I can play it in D flat. And I was blown away. So I realized what I lacked. And so I said, I need to get more orchestration courses. So I took orchestration. Then I said, I want to study opera because it incorporates everything. It's just like Mickey Mouse, which is a film scoring technique, blah, blah. Anyways, I'll make a long story short. My path is very unusual. I remember I was working at the Juilliard School, which I just started working at again. Classes start in a few days. But I left Juilliard. I'm saying that for a reason. I was music director at Greater Allen A. Mead Cathedral. I left Greater Allen A. Mead Cathedral. I was also one of the youngest professors on the tenure track at CUNY. And my father had died. I had to pay like $4,000 a month for my mom's care. Oh, my Aunt Charlene is on. Wow, that's my father's sister. I had to pay, all this money and try to stay in New York or worry about going back home to Georgia. I was traveling to Georgia once a month, and God said, drop all your jobs and trust me. People told me I was crazy.
Oh,
why are you leaving
my
the
God.
the Juilliard School? But really, when you trust God, when you have a vision, and when you have something drawing you, it doesn't matter about registering. It doesn't matter if you have an education or not. I stopped working for the Juilliard School. I stopped working at a college where I was making a huge salary with huge benefits. No benefits, no health insurance, nothing, because God said leave. I left Greater Allen A. Mead Cathedral. People thought I was crazy. Then, just a few months later, I was the music director for Sunday Best on BET. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been able to do Sunday Best and start working with other artists. Of course, I worked with people before, but that's really when I began to really just trust God, because that taught me it's okay to have a faith walk. I'd heard Bishop Jackie McCullough preach a sermon years before, just saying that sometimes God wants you to walk on a faith walk. And just for everybody out there listening, or people who may rewatch this playback, sometimes your path is going to be so unusual, so strange. And sometimes the timing of how God or when God will do something won't make sense to people around you. Sometimes God does that just so that they know that it was him. Like the scripture says, it's the Lord's doing this marvelous in our eyes. But for me, music and writing songs, and during that period, I remember my first song that I wrote was Here With You. I was in Georgia, and I was in the shower, and I heard the entire song. That was very unusual, like the whole thing. I've been trying to work on music, but words wouldn't come. And years later, when I was in New York, after Howard University, this is way before I started working at Greater Allen, Twinkie Clark was working on a project. She actually wrote some of the songs on my Kurzweil 2500X. I was living in Long Island, in Bellport, and I gave her the song, and she recorded it on Verity Records, Sony, Sony Verity, back then Zamba, and that was so awesome to have that experience. I started, had to get a publishing company with ASCAP. I hadn't had that opportunity, and then when I re-recorded later on, Anisha Figueroa recorded, which is amazing. Anisha killed it, but that really sort of pushed me into the place where I felt like maybe my songs had something to say. But it's interesting. If anybody watches the videotape of Twinkie's album live in Charlotte, you'll see me, my hands are up like this. You'll see my parents on both sides of me. But the weirdest thing happens, and it's not that it haunts me in a negative way, but I'll just say it comes to me often. My parents, afterwards, I was coming from New York, so I had a hotel. They said to me, we need to talk to you. I'm like, okay, why do you need to talk to me? What's going on? They said, we listened to the words of your song. I said, okay. They said, no, really, we want to talk to you seriously. So we sat in the car. We didn't even go into the hotel room. They were staying with me. They said, we had no idea growing up that you were in that much pain.
Oh.
Not that they said, not that we did anything wrong, but we realized the lyrics to the song, here I am to give you glory, here I am to give you praise. Even though my heart is broken, I found my strength in you. Oh, Lord, you've kept me when I didn't have a dime. My life was broken, but you rescued me on time. Lord, here I am by myself, right here with you. And they said, we tried to cover you as much as we could. We realized when you went to college and had to live life, there are things we couldn't keep you from. We had no idea that you were bearing so much. And I said, well, how do you know I was bearing so much? He said, because in your song, we can feel your heart. And I think a good writer, not that it's negativity that has to be felt, but you can feel their spirit. You can feel the intentionality of the writer, the power of the pen. And I'll say something which
Damien, let me ask you a question. How old were you when you wrote that song? The particular song that they were talking about?
I think I was about 20 years old. 20. Now, what's interesting is my father was never a songwriter. He took piano lessons and sang. I don't know if my Aunt Charlene is still on. A lot of people probably signed off. But what's interesting, before my father died, maybe about 2 years before he died, he told me the Lord gave me a song because I was adopted. He said, I want you to find your biological family, you know, blah, blah, blah. But when you find them, because I was in the process, he said, this is the song that the Lord gave me for you. And I'm looking like, God gave you a song? And I said, Dad, God gave you a song, Daddy? He said, yeah. So I listened to it. And when he sang it, I started crying because I felt something in the song. And it's very interesting. About 3 months before my father died, I started dreaming about the song.
Oh,
and
wow.
I knew what that meant. A few weeks before he died, I kept dreaming about the song more. So I knew that meant he was about to transition because he told me,
wow.
He said, I won't be around, but this is the song I want you to record. So on my album, the first album, Introspections, that I did on my own, with features Sam Franklin and Anisha Figueroa, Timothy Figueroa, Leon Lacey, Arcel Vickers, who else is on there? David Bratton.
Y'all hear
Mark
these
Cochran.
names?
I mean, there's so many people. Kenneth Whalum, Takesha Russell, who else is on there? Bettina Pennon, Nikki Ross. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Melaine Rochford, Cherub Alethea, Ruth, I'm giving her full name. I could go on and on. But what's interesting is the last song that George Huff sang was that song, Introspections. Everybody had rehearsal. We rehearsed at Bishop Michelle White's church. Bishop Ionel Locke was there, my spiritual mother. Everybody was there. And everybody got to rehearse their song. And George said, well, are you going to give me the song? I couldn't sing it because it brought up a lot of emotion. I couldn't give it to him. That morning at about 5:30 in the morning, I finally completed the song that my father started. And
you're helping me. Man, you're helping me. Keep going.
George Huff didn't hear it until that morning. And it's the last song on the album. And you can listen to it, and then Anisha comes in, and Nikki Ross, and they kill it. But it's called Introspections.
Mm-hmm.
The words were, finally I'm chosen, finally I'm here. You know, the questions that I had, it's a really introspective song. And so I called my album Introspections Live. And yeah, it was amazing. And that's what also pushed me to create my own label. I won't say which labels, but there's some major labels that were bringing me in to be signed. I mean, I had contracts and everything, and then always something would happen. And so I realized, you know what, instead of me allowing my heart to be taken through the ringer, depending on people or systems, then I can just look within myself and create my own platform and avenue to release this music that God has given me, because I knew it would help somebody. And I realized too, you know, big stages are great, and God's afforded me the opportunity all the time to perform at great stages: Carnegie Hall, Kennedy Center, the Barbican, the Olympics, Japan, Africa, 10,000, 30,000 people.
Came back from Australia, right?
Yeah, Australia. But it's no different than being in a storefront church with 6 or 7 people. It's no different than being on a Zoom call with 3 or 4 people. It's no different than singing to one person that's on the street that may not have money, that may be homeless or anything. I realized that. That's something I also learned from the Clark sisters, that Mattie Moss taught them to give it your all no matter where you are. But what I realized, if one person comes to me, I always told God, if one person comes to me and tells me that my song blessed them, then I'm satisfied. And I've been overwhelmed, because every song that I've composed, written, collaborated with other writers, which I enjoy doing, people have come to me and said, I was about to commit suicide, and the Lord had me play your song, Broken to Minister. One guy said, you know, I was sick, and my mom was sick too. She was in ICU, and we played your song until God healed her. You know, stuff like that. But there's a story to each song, and I'll tell you one of the things on songwriting, because I know we got cut off. My mentor, Richard Smallwood, I was in.
First of all, okay, go ahead, because you're leaning into my next question, but go ahead.
My sophomore year, he gave me my first professional gig at Howard University. We went to Morgan State University, Christmas. It was a Christmas concert. And I'm with Richard Smallwood, you know, I'm like, had to wait a long time in the back. And so we're just talking, very kind. And Richard said, you know, well, how's everything going at Howard? I said, it's great. I said, but can I ask you a few questions? He said, sure. You know, we still haven't gone on, you know, to the stage to do stuff. I said, I just have 2 questions for you. One of my favorite songs that you wrote says, for the many times I've fallen. Thank you. For food and for shelter, for clothing, thank you. For waking me up this morning, thank you. Sharice Nelson from DC. I saw John Hart on, who was very instrumental in connecting me to Twinkie Clark and the Clark sisters. God always puts people in your life that open doors for you, so I'm grateful to John. What's interesting, Richard said, you don't want to know why I wrote that song. And he told me the story behind that song, and I was blown away. And then I said, well, what made you write Total Praise? He told me the story behind that. I said, this is too much. When I met Twinkie, I said, Twinkie, what made you write Endow Me? What made you write Thank You for the Healing? What made you write And when she told me, I actually told God, don't give me any more songs.
Woo!
Because I realized we have to go through in order to release the power of the pen and to release a certain sound, especially if we want there to be a connection on the song, even when we're not even left in the earth.
Damien.
See, that I can get into that. There's some songwriters like Andre Crouch, I'll Never Leave You. You still feel the power of his music.
Listen.
You can still feel it.
Listen. This show, what I thought the intent for it was going to be, God completely flipped it around. And he turned it into what you're actually explaining right now, where we're finding out more about the content behind what brought the song about and why these people wrote these songs and why this music is as powerful as it is, right? You're right. You're right about, there's like an echo too.
Sorry.
That's okay. You're right when you say that you don't want, when my mother passed, if you watch any of my previous shows, you'll hear me say how people told me that I was going to get some songs out of losing my mother. And my response was, I don't want the songs. I want my mother. Right? There's that part, right? But let me move to this real quick, because as you're talking, I'm just thinking about this. I feel like God has made you this conduit, right? I feel like God has made you this conduit because, Damien, you are a conductor, you are a film scorer, you're a songwriter, you are a singer, you have worked in opera, you've worked in classical music, you've worked with jazz singers, you have worked with the greatest in gospel music, and that's just the knowledge that I have. You probably have more that you've done, more people that you've worked with. And like you said, everything doesn't have to be done on a big stage to mean that you've done something. The fact that you have been in rooms, with people to create or even to watch, to glean from, that is such a huge blessing. But I also believe that it's a huge responsibility. And I think that there are some people, I can't wait for people to go back and watch the beginning of this live and then catch up to where we are right now. Some people may have also been given the ability to work in so many different facets and genres of music, right? However, you have not yet given me any inclination that you have felt intimidated by where you are. And if that is a thing, or if it's not a thing, I want you to explain how you got over intimidation, or if you didn't feel intimidation, tell us why not.
No, I've definitely felt intimidation before. I had really good parents that taught me to be confident. I've had really, really great mentors, Winston Marsalis, Aretha Franklin. So Aretha, it wasn't just playing with her, it wasn't just playing her last performance, in New York. She would email me. I still have the emails and voicemails, and she would really encourage me about that and tell me parts of her story that, some people see stuff in the movie that people didn't know. Jesse Norman, being able to share, every mentor I've had, they've been able to share with me. Even when I worked with Diana Ross, for some reason, she just felt led to just share stuff with me. And so I didn't take that lightly, because I'm just a little country southern boy from Augusta, Georgia. I was never from the big city. I wanted to be in New York. My parents actually talked to Walter Turnbull. They were going to move to New York so I could be in the Boy Squad of Harlem. Then when I moved to New York, I ended up becoming the accompanist, the last accompanist for the Boy Squad of Harlem. I can tell you all these stories how God did stuff, but that's the reason, the doors that God has opened for me. I remember driving from the Augusta Mall, not sure where I was going to go to college, with 22 full scholarships. I was actually going to go into medicine, and I went to the Grammy Awards, and God spoke to me after the Grammy.
Hold on. You're not going to slide. You're not going to glide over what you just said.
What?
How many scholarships did you receive?
22 full scholarships to Ivy League schools like Yale, Harvard, Duke, different places for medicine. I wanted to be an obstetrician gynecologist or a cardiac surgeon. But when I went to the Grammy Awards, two of the people there, they were still friends of mine, they prophesied to me. I'd never really been prophesied to. I was from the Baptist church. And God spoke to me. I could hear a song. I could hear it. And I came back home and I said I was going to major in music. So my family didn't like that. They said, you can't be a musician. You're not going to make any money. You're not going to have insurance. Musicians are drug dealers, or they do drugs. Musicians just live any kind of life. Musicians have nothing. They're not respected. This is what was said to me. So that's something I had to get over, but I knew what I was supposed to do. And then I'll never forget, I was driving from the Augusta Mall. I'm like, God, should I major in medicine or should I actually just, do music? And Richard Smallwood was on an interview talking about the release of Total Praise, that album. I'm dating myself, but I started crying while he was talking. I said, God, I want to go to the school that he went to. I remember that in Augusta. Then I had a full scholarship for Howard from Sony Music for whatever I wanted to major in based on my SAT scores. I decided to major in music. And the first day that we got there, we drove and stayed in a hotel. My parents, my mother and father with me, we stayed at a hotel off Massachusetts Avenue. One of my friends from the NAACP Axel competition called me and said, Damien, did you and your parents make it to DC? I said, yeah. He's from Suitland, Maryland. Kevin Thompson. He said, me and my mother are coming to pick you up. I said, pick me up. So I asked my parents, can I go with them? And, my parents knew his mother and stuff because we've been friends for like 2 years. They said, yes. You know where Kevin took me? I'd only been in DC for maybe 3 or 4 hours, right? Watch this.
Where did you go, Damien?
I said, where are we going? He said, I can't tell you. I said, well, why did you pick me up? He said, his mom said, you're going to like this. We went to Metropolitan Baptist Church in DC, and it was the CD release concert for Richard Smallwood's album, Total Praise, or Adoration and Praise. And I was blown away. And so the entire time I was at Howard, stuff like that would happen, where I'd meet people. John Hart, who was on here, introduced me to Twinkie Clark. I'd gotten prophecies when I was a student at Howard about, oh, you're going to meet Twinkie Clark. I was looking at people like, yeah, because I didn't really believe in prophecy that much, because I'm like, yeah, right, damn you album. And then I met her. Twinkie and I would pray together. We were just talking yesterday about this. I was just blown away at the people I would meet. And I'm like, this little boy from Augusta, who everybody said, when I was in high school, they told me the reason I stopped singing is because people said, you don't have enough soul. I said, what? They said, yeah, you sing. They said, you sing like white people. I'm like, what does that mean, like white people? They said, well, you don't have soul. You'll never do gospel. You'll never do R&B. And gospel, forget about it. You're too classical. I remember in my school, in middle school, one of my close friends, she wasn't black, she said, you're not going to be a classical musician. When I got to New York, a well-known person that you and I both know said to me in a group of like 50 people out loud, Damien, all you're good for is the church. Just going somewhere where they cook chicken and eat watermelon. This is somebody that you and I both know. And I was offended at that. And they said, you'll never do classical music. You'll never go. Another person in New York City, very well-known person, said to me one-on-one, you'll never be at Carnegie Hall. You'll never be at Juilliard. I had a teacher at Howard that said,
you taught at Juilliard.
Yeah, but I've had so many people tell me what I could and couldn't do. I've had people tell me, you're a black man. All you can do is jazz music or play basketball. You'll never be successful in classical.
Are y'all listening to this in the comments? Are y'all listening?
And that's what pushed me. That's what pushed me. Anytime someone has told me no, I remember the scripture, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. And I really take that scripture, like not just to heart, like every single word, every jot, every tittle, every iota. And if David in the Bible expressed himself musically, and if Twinkie Clark can write and sing, and Richard Smallwood can write and sing, Donnie McClurkin, and all the people that I've had a chance to work with, they write, sing, preach, they do all this stuff, they're amazing. Why can't I do it? And Wynton, in 1988 and 1989, he won Classical Artist of the Year at the Grammys and Jazz Artist of the Year, 2 years in a row consecutively. So this is someone that I met in Augusta, and now he's pouring into me. He's my mentor. He knows my parents. These are the people that God has selected for this little adopted boy who was labeled autistic, who was mute, who was supposed to be in special education, you know, if he could break me out of that trajectory and break me out of that box, give me loving and order my steps. I'll never forget my first time going to Vegas was with Bishop Hezekiah Walker. I had a chance to play for him. I'm like, why are these? He called me when I was a student at NYU. It was my first week at NYU. I'm like, God, you're connecting me with all these people, you know, and listening to some of your music growing up, your music, Estee. When I was a student at Howard and at DC, you know, going through the press, not knowing what to do, and your music encouraged me and kept me going. I can't believe that I'm even on a platform. IG wasn't around then, but on a platform, and like the people that God has allowed to pour into me, the whether they're from church, whether they're jazz musicians, R&B musicians, hip hop, the industry people. There's so many things that God has just recently opened. Being signed to Apple Music, like that's not even possible. But now they have a label. But just the people, and I always understand that any door that God has opened for me is never just for me. It's for me to bring other people through the door. Because I didn't get where I am by myself. It wasn't because I'm so great. I'm not the best keyboard player. I'm not the best organist. I'm not the best singer, songwriter. I don't think I'm mediocre because I work at it. But to other people, they don't like my stuff. It's okay. You don't have to like what I do. Just like there are different seasonings to cook food. You may not like curry. You may not like salt. You may not like pepper. You may like Mrs. Dash. You may want to use vegetable seasoning. But that's up to you. And I had to get comfortable in my own skin, my own casing, who God has made me to be. I've been through entirely too much to compare myself over and over to other people and to feel like my song, you know, okay, maybe my voice is raspy. It isn't raspy. Maybe I sound bad. Maybe I can't do a run, or maybe a growl. But the fact that I asked God, and I meant it. I said that, and every concert I do, you can ask people that travel with me and sing, Tiffany Stevenson, Sinead Campbell, the people that, Mattia Washington, Celeste Washington, that have been with me for a while.
I love all of them.
I'd say if we can just reach one person, Lenny Smith. Lenny and I wrote Brooklyn Minister. If we can just reach one person, that's all that matters. And so I strive in every performance to give it my all, because I know how it is to be somewhere, you're in a room of 1,000 people and you feel alone. And I know how it is where a song, the power of the pen, kept me from wanting to kill myself. Times when I wanted to put a knife to my wrist because people didn't accept me, or they didn't like how I sounded, or I didn't fit in the box. I don't need the people's boxes. And I
know don't need it
to show other people that you don't have to be in the box. You can write, you can produce, you can do different genres of music. You know, so I mean, I could go on, and I know our audience is vast, so I'm not trying to pigeonhole it, but yes, I've been really intimidated. I've had so many doors closed in my face. I've had people tell me what I'd never be. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I'll never forget going to the Stellar Awards. I was going to the back to do the red carpet, and two major songwriters, major artists, they both saw me. One of them spoke, said, "Hey, Damien," and the other said, "What are you doing here?" And the other artist said, he thought it was a joke. He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm going to the Stellar. Why are you here? Stay wherever you are. Just keep doing classical and jazz. We don't need you over here. We're good over here." So, you know, I have had to deal with that. I've had to deal with not fitting in, but it's okay. And Winton told me something. He said, you know, Beethoven, Mozart, they weren't honored when they lived, when they were alive. He said, I don't expect people to like my music. Just Norman said, don't read the music critics. You know, don't read all the comments. Sometimes you want to go back and respond back. Why? Why highlight it? Why give it life? Sometimes it may be 100 years from now that people in another country, or somebody is doing a history report, or someone's doing an essay or their dissertation on Estee Bullock. We don't know where this technological innovation is going to go. Right now it's on a phone or an iPad or an Android. We don't know where this technology is going to go and what it's going to transform into. Who will hear the words of life coming from our mouth now? So I've come to understand that my life is a seed planted, not in the ground, because I'm not dying yet, but it's a seed planted in the earth, in the wind, in the air, so that someone can capture it. Because if I'm just here for one person, I know I'm not, because every time I do something, there's somebody to affect. That's why I have to be prepared. That's why I have to be confident in whatever I have. They may not like it. 89 people may not like it. Maybe 11, maybe only one person, but I can come for the one, because I'm that one. I'm that one. I'm that one that they wrote off. I'm the one that couldn't talk, and then when I did talk, I stuttered. I'm the one that, like, oh, I could go on and on. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, Damien, Nobody's upset. We are, trust me when I tell you, nobody's upset. What you are sharing is changing somebody's life right now. What you are saying is causing someone who is at a crossroad, help them decide which direction to take.
It's
Everything that you,
timing. Sometimes
everything that you've explained and everything that you've talked about sounds very much God orchestrated. Like God has really taken control over your path, and he has placed you again in rooms and in front of people and walked you through some doors that if you would have listened to those critics and the naysayers, you may have ended your potential. You may have done it, but thanks be to our God that you did not, that you have not. I know for a fact that some people that did not know who you were, or maybe have not heard your music, are going to Google you tonight. And I'm glad about that, because I want them to hear what you've written. I want them to hear what you created. Let's dive into some other questions. You know, like I said, you've done gospel, you've done jazz, you've done opera, classical music, and you've done pieces. You work with you've created and done arrangements for the Philharmonic, for shows, for presentations. What makes you, not what makes you, how do you select the music that you're going to work on and create?
Most of the time it's given to me.
Okay.
Like Sunday Best, we had a list of 90 songs, and I had to arrange them in like a week, less than a week, maybe about 4 days. But I had a great team. Teamwork is everything. I had Lauren Dawson, Shelton Gray on bass. Lauren was on organ and keys. Kevin Powell was on organ. Melody Daniels was there. Isaac Kareem.
Sounds good to me.
Anisha Figueroa, Shanae Mattia, Jermaine Parrish on drums, Tim Green on saxophone. I had a great team.
Yeah.
So we were able to pull on each other's strengths. We wanted to go classical. They could lean on me a little bit. We could go jazz. We could do different parts of the gospel spectrum. So having a team is good. How do I select songs? I'm just inspired, but I don't allow my intellect, which is, small. I'm saying small, meaning I'm just a regular person. I'm not, super the best or the greatest. But
yeah, that's what he said. 90 songs.
I don't allow my cerebral or intellectual impetus drive anything anymore. Because when people listen to music, sometimes like what type of song, they just want the feeling. So a lot of times I go based on feeling, and I can trust feeling because my feeling is spirit. And the Holy Spirit will lead me and guide me like he's led me and guided me to where I am now. So I try to make sure I don't get too intellectual and cerebral, because I can go there because of all the education and being a professor and knowing all the words to say and all that kind of stuff and what should be appropriate. But I like to just go with feeling. So sometimes I create from feeling. Sometimes I think of another song or another album or a film or an atmosphere or something, and I try to create from that and try to bring it down and let the music encapsulate and capture that feeling, that presence, so to speak. No matter what the style is. And that's the thing about classical music, is it's not just about notes. It's about the style. It's about capturing the intentionality of the composer. So with gospel music, it's also about putting, I tell singers, putting on different shapes. There are lots of different sopranos, lots of different ways to do a song. Let go, let God. I've heard it done different. I can be, let go, let God, let him have his way. It's probably going to be a joke, let go, let God. Let go, let God. So there are different ways of let go.
Sing, sir.
All that kind of stuff. So
sing.
But you can take one song and put it in 12 different styles or more. Or we can think of a certain artist. So
let me ask you this. I don't normally ask my guests this, but I'm gonna ask you this. Who is Damien listening to?
Right now?
Right now. Who are you listening to?
Wow, so much stuff. I've been listening to Stravinsky. I've been listening to Kim Burrell's first album, and particularly the song Home. Oh, I hear you speaking, I will obey.
Yes.
I've been listening to my friend who just passed, my big brother, the late Carnell Morrell, one of the greatest songwriters ever. He wrote Prodigal Son, wrote Watch Me, so many songs. The first album that Kirk Franklin was on, I listened to a lot of McCoy Tyner, jazz piano.
Jazz.
I mean, there's so much stuff that I listen to. I force myself to listen to new stuff constantly. I've been listening to a lot of Nina Simone, some new stuff. I just heard Nina Simone's version of Mood Indigo, and it's blowing my mind. Like I mean, I've always liked Nina Simone, but I had no idea. And I listen to a lot of film scores. I listen to a lot of string music, Schumann, and I love Liszt, and I've listened to a lot of Wagner and Strauss as far as opera, tone poems, so that way I can paint. And so with a note, it can be a chord. So I hear
color, that's right.
I hear the color of the strings with the winds and the brass. And I've been trying to learn a lot of percussion, so I'm listening to the difference in the timpani and the tams and the cymbals, and then like maybe the difference in a xylophone and a marimba. All those types of things, just to hear colors. So I mean, I listen to so many different things all at one time. And I've really been listening to a lot of old gospel music to hear how people would sing a song with the integrity of telling the story. That's why Abby Lincoln, to me, is one of the greatest storytellers. She could just tell the story, And I listen to people like Dorothy Love Coates, even some young Albertina Walker. I'm like, whoa, they could just take a few lines and the way they told the story and made the power of the pen be illuminated by just taking a few words and giving it something. I said, that's what I've really, I have to do that. I mean, there's so many other artists that I listen to. I mean, if you looked at my iTunes, you'd be like, wow.
I'm not surprised by this list at all. This list does not surprise me. It actually makes sense. It makes so much sense. Damien, there's something that we do here on the show that I do for all of my guests. Everybody, y'all know what time it is. We would have done it sooner, but we've just been enjoying your testimony. We want you to know here on The Power of the Pen that we appreciate you and we love you. We don't want you to be laying in front of us before you find out. So this is our song of appreciation just for you.
We appreciate you.
Heart song. Flower emoji. Let's go. Flame emoji.
Love and appreciate you. Yes, we do. We appreciate you.
Let's go, y'all.
Love and appreciate you. Yes, we do. We appreciate you.
I love it. The flowers in the heart.
Love and appreciate you. Yes, we do.
Damien, man, let me tell you something. I knew when I wanted to get you on this show that you were already a genius, but you have literally blown our minds tonight. You have defied obstacles. You have defied naysayers. You have defied science, I would even say, because there's certain things physically about yourself that should not have allowed you to become who you are today. But because of the God we serve, man, and we appreciate you, man. We love you. We appreciate you. We are glad that we have you. And we're glad for your contribution. What does it feel like to have a concert at Symphony Hall or at one of these huge arenas in New York City that doesn't feature an opera singer but features Twinkie Clark or the Karen Clark Sheard, and you're sitting there as the conductor and arranger putting it all together? What does that feel like?
That was so unusual. There's one clip of Wandolyn Stokes just doing spoken word, and then it turned into like a sermonette, and then Twinkie comes to the organ. That was so surreal because the audience was filled with people from all walks of life. Some people had never been in a church before. but they all were together in unity, people of different races, cultures, belief systems, but we were all there. And actually, everybody was worshiping God and praising God. Now, people are going to say that's not possible. I know they were all praising. You have to worship in spirit and in truth. But the spirit in the room was definitely one that everybody could feel. It was very overwhelming. And I loved that atmosphere and that environment. And to have Faith Evans and, of course, Twinkie's sister Karen there. And I used some of my singers and Camille Thurman to have that expression of Twinkie Clark. Because in her music, you know, there's everything. She's one of my mentors. And I know there are a lot of times that I've been able to encourage her, you know, because it's hard as a creative. And I'll say, nope, you got to keep going on because this song that you did helped me, you know. And of course, people don't realize, and you know this, and the other creatives out there, I see Anitra on, and Maya, so many people, and Tanya, sometimes we don't always have the fuel or the energy. Not that we're doing anything wrong, but when you are effective, you do empty out a little bit. That's why we have to stay full. Sometimes the encouragement does not only just come through praying and reading scriptures and, you know, positive thinking.
Yes.
Sometimes the encouragement you need is from another creative.
That's good.
Not that you need their opinion to ride on, or that's
good.
You know, but sometimes someone who really gets it, you know, the perspective of someone else who really understands. You know,
right.
There are many people who give us compliments, but depending on who the encouragement comes from, it makes a big difference.
That's true.
It makes a huge difference. And so to be able to do that for Twinkie Clark and to make sure she was elated, I just talked to her yesterday. We're going to try to do one more of those. But I'm so blessed to work with so many luminary figures and artists. I don't know why. I don't know why I've been able to work with some of the greatest female vocalists like Twinkie, Kim Burrell,
I cannot
Aretha Franklin,
miss the next event. I
Karen
cannot.
Clark. I'm like, yeah. You know, and it's also great doing stuff around the world and seeing the effective music around the world. And one thing I always do, Winston was talking about this, I have a couple of orchestral conducting gigs. I always program other people. I'm not just doing my music, because there's always a space for me to do stuff I've composed, but whether it's gospel, I'm always composing people that are my contemporaries or people that are still living to expose others. And so like when I go to, I did a David Bratton song, oh God, you are my God, early will I seek your face, my soul, instead of just doing every praise. And the people were blown away, and even to the point in Spain where
music.
Someone came and gave their life to Christ, and then the lady ended up dying the next day. Wow. You know, so I'm like, whoa, like you never know how effective song selection is. And so it's important as a writer. I don't listen to a lot of music unless I'm in a mode where I'm not writing. You know, I have a period where I listen, but it's important as songwriters and creators that you listen to other people that are your contemporaries, even if you don't like them as a person, or even if you don't like their style of music, or even if
listen.
But it's just good to listen and be aware of what other people are doing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I love it whenever I have a chance. People would know this, like whenever Corey Henry's in a city that I'm in, I go and support, we go hang out, and it's good just to be able to sit and enjoy somebody else. You know what I'm saying? I go hear Avery Sunshine sometimes, like some of my friends that are artists will say, you know, they're in town, and if I'm free, which is very rare, I'll just go and listen to them, and it's just awesome. And it's awesome to be in a collective. I read about that during the Harlem Renaissance, that people like Hall Johnson and other great musicians and singers and even poets, Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes, they would all get together, Thurgood Marshall, and sit and talk about art and literature. So it's good sometimes to be in a hang with people who know what's going on with art, because sometimes that's the kind of charge that we need. We don't just need, you know, things that will speak to us just as the person or the spirit, but to recharge our creative flow. Sometimes we need to be around creative. So this show is excellent. Being in a collective where you can be recharged around your own kind, that's rare. It's very rare. So thank you for doing this. Because I know it's a sacrifice to be consistent all the time, and you wonder if you're being effective, but just from the hearts that I'm seeing and the comments, you're doing a great work too, Estee, and thank you for your music. I mean, you've written some major, major songs.
Thank you, Damien.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, man. I don't want to keep you long. I definitely have to, I'm probably going to call you after this show.
Cool, you can.
Yo, if there's anything that you can say I mean, you already said enough. Your testimony is enough, but something intentionally. Can you share something with someone who may have some challenges? Maybe, I don't know, maybe they don't have enough money, they feel, to do what they want to do as a creative. Maybe they feel like they don't have enough resources. Maybe they feel like, physically they've had some challenges that have not allowed them to be their 100% creative self, right? Is there anything that you can say to encourage that creative that will watch this video? Please do that right now, please.
Don't give up. Sometimes you have to sow into yourself. Sometimes you have to go without some things just to make things happen. A lot of people would have no idea sometimes when I had to take out a loan, or I had great friends, they don't want me to call their names, who'd be like, you know what, here's $10,000. I never forget, I did a recording. I'm like, how am I going to pay for this recording? One of my friends, her husband, who's always quiet in the back, he walked up to me and said, God told me to pay for this. I'm like, no, you're joking. He said, no. And he wrote me a check for, at that time, it was a check for $8,000. I said, so when do I pay you back? He said, no, you don't need to pay me back. And even, I'm just being very honest, even recently, it's not that I didn't have the money coming in. Sometimes people are slow paying creatives. The check is coming. I thought I would have a check by a certain time. And I was like going crazy. I'm like, God, I don't have a name out there for not paying people or not, having money to do stuff. I was like, God, this is unheard of. And so I didn't want to tell anybody, because, like, you don't tell anybody because then it looks like God's up in something. One of my friends said, oh, you know what? How much is it? And I told them how much it was, like over $10,000. Said, here, I'll pay for it. They paid for it, and of course, the money came to me the very next day. But it was more so for God to show me, Damien, the same way that you've poured into people without telling others, and you've helped people and helped families and helped people with places to stay and, paid people's bills. I'm sure a lot of people have done that before. But if you sowed seeds to help others, whether it was with your time, like Eric Kellum just joined. He was a major inspiration for me as a student at Howard. But when you realize that you can help people and pour into people, not always money, but time, attention, just a listening ear, know that God's going to have the same thing for you, always. So don't give up to the people that are out there when you don't have enough money, and especially if the doors keep closing. That means God has another way. He has another path. He has another trajectory. That's the way it was for me. And now that I have a label, people are like, oh, how did you get a label? And oh, how did your label become a member of this? And how can you vote for the Grammys? And how are you all on Billboard? And how'd you get a Dove Award? And how'd you get, a Stellar nomination, Grammy nomination? How are you going to this? It's the only reason is because people said no.
Jesus.
If certain people had said yes and doors said, you get to the door, you all get to the door. What's up, Daryl? Oh, he's gonna go get Susan. You get to the door and you're like, God, are you playing a joke? Like, why am I meeting with these people? Why am I hanging with these people? Why did I write this song and they didn't give me credit for it? Why did they lie about my publishing? Why did they have me do this film score, this commercial? And they're walking around with the credit on Instagram grinning, and they're doing all this stuff, and you still owe me $3,000. All that kind of stuff. I'm just being real. But you know what? If you hold your peace, God will fight your battles. And sometimes the no's that come to us as creatives is because God is trying to force us, like, look the other way, look within. But we don't get that because we think we need a name or a title or a certain person who has this or has that to endorse us. You are the endorsement many times. Jeez. Sometimes God wants you to create a new path. Sometimes God wants you to be the new thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? And not the new thing like you're all of that, but like sometimes we're too busy trying to be copycats, and we need to be monogenic. We need to be monogenes. We need to be individuals. We need to realize that God is not like Xerox. He's not like FedEx Kinko. Like, he has an individual thumbprint for each of us. We have an individual sound. Our words are going to be different. Your song may say, I like that flower. Somebody else may say, I love that flower. Yeah. Somebody else may say, I love that daffodil. Whatever it is, be okay with whatever it is. People think, oh, you're crazy. Yeah, he's a little strange. Oh, no, why? Yo, what up? I don't know like that. It doesn't matter. There's enough diversity in the earth for all of us to have a certain place that is our own niche, whatever you want to say, our own space. So just I have to encourage people. Sometimes the no's are because God is like, yo, I'm trying to get you to realize it's not about that door. It's not about that platform. I will make you the platform. I will make you the door for others.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do it in you. And if people can believe that and understand that, I'm telling you, I think we'd have a lot more pleasant souls and spirits walking around, because some people are just bitter. And you know what? Age doesn't matter either. You can be 80, 90 years old. Look at the lady that was in Black Panther. At her age, you never know when a song is going to break. And hey, it may not even break in your lifetime. It may be way after you're dead and gone. You know? And for some people, the reaping is not even in this plane. That's a whole other story. But yeah, we don't have time. Sometimes the reaping is for your children and for your children's children. You know, so it's what are we writing the song for? What do we have the power and authority to use a pen to set words and rhythm and with melodic, harmonic content? What is it for? Is it just for a couple of awards that are plastic, that are spray painted or coated in something that looks like it's gold, or something that we can just go make our own, you know, at the little shop down the street? You know, is it for that? Is it to be on a list? Is it to have likes? Is it to have a blue check? Is it to have a title? Is it for people to say, yay, I like you? What does that matter?
Listen, everybody, hashtag power of the pen. Please put it in the comments. Hashtag power of the pen. I have no complaints, man. No complaints.
Thank you so much, brother.
You are a genius. You are a blessing to music and to our culture and to our world. You are. And that song of appreciation is not just the segment of this show. It literally is us sharing our appreciation for you.
Wow.
Literally.
Wow. Thank you so much for having me on this platform.
Say what's on your mind. Speak loud from within. Make us sing along with the power of the pen. Say what's on your mind. Speak loud from within. Make us sing along with the power